Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Honourable Lady for calling today's debate on an incredibly important issue. In response to the crisis in Afghanistan, we have delivered the largest and most complex evacuation in living memory. In the space of just 2 weeks, we evacuated around 8,000 British nationals, around 5,000 Afghans under the Arab scheme, and around 500 Afghan special cases, including judges, chevening scholars, journalists, and women's rights activists. This is in addition to the 1,978 Afghans evacuated through the Arab scheme between April, when we started the scheme, and the end of August. And
I'm most grateful. In the statement on Monday, the Home Office Minister said family members of British citizens or Afghans settled in the UK who do not qualify for the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme can apply to come to the UK under existing family routes. The majority of our cases, I suspect, are these family reunion cases. What priority is going to be given to those? She also said, we will not be able, therefore, to respond to colleagues with specific updates on individuals. Does that mean the 160 letters which I'm waiting for a reply to will not get any reply at all?
I thank the honourable gentleman. I will come on to how we intend to inform members of the House about cases that they've raised with us later on in the speech, and if you'll bear with me, I will address that. We also repatriated an estimated 500 British nationals who left Afghanistan in accordance with the FCDO travel advice when that was changed. In total, from April of this year to August of this year, we helped over 17,000 people get to safety, and I pay tribute to the troops and the civilian staff who helped to make that possible. And I pay tribute once again to all those who served in Afghanistan over the last 20 years, whether they be in the armed forces or in other roles. Madam Deputy Speaker, in this next phase, we are working to secure safe passage for those British nationals and eligible Afghans who remain in the country. My right honourable friend, the then Foreign Secretary, visited Qatar 2 weeks ago to discuss efforts to re-establish flights from Kabul airport and the wider international approach to the Taliban. International flights have now started. We secured places for 13 British nationals on the first Qatari flight from Kabul on the 9th of September. 21 British nationals were on the second flight the following day, and we will continue on this work to help evacuate British nationals via that route. We're also... I will give way.
I'm very grateful. Two quick questions. First of all, how many British nationals does he think are still in Afghanistan? And secondly, if other people are going to be helped out, Afghan nationals, some of them will still be needing consular support because they'll be needing visas or permits to be able to travel. How are we intending to be that support to be given? Are we doing that through another nation state? Are we going to be able to do that from out of country? What's the plan?
He raises the point about the numbers of people in Afghanistan, and he will understand that the British government does not demand British nationals overseas register with us. We don't demand when they cross borders. And so it is incredibly difficult. And this is one of the challenges that we are facing. It is incredibly difficult to put a precise number on the number of British nationals in Afghanistan, particularly as I say, there is no requirement necessarily for people to register with us when they cross the borders. I'm conscious there is a huge interest in this debate, and I really do want to make some progress. We are working closely with Afghans' neighbours to ensure safe passage through those countries. My right honourable friend, the then Foreign Secretary, visited Pakistan after Qatar and saw for himself the situation in Torkham on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. I've also had discussions, he has also had discussions with the foreign ministers of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan and Iran. And our diplomacy is paying off. Over the weekend, we helped secure safe passage for a number of Afghan nationals, including the staff of the Nowzad Animal Charity, which I know is of huge interest both to members of this House and the British people more widely, after they made their way to the border. We have also dispatched a rapid deployment team comprising 23 staff to the region last week to support our embassies in processing these cases, which goes to the point that the honourable gentleman for the Rhondda raised in terms of where this will be processed. It will be these cases will be processed in wherever is most appropriate, although the main ambassadorial team that service Afghanistan are currently based in Doha. We are sending further rapid deployment teams to bolster these efforts, with additional staff being sent to Pakistan, to Tajikistan and indeed to Uzbekistan.
Thank him for giving way. Members on both sides of the House are fighting the corner for deserving Afghans who we want to save. The Minister has just said that the Nowzad Animal Charity staff, who are not Arab people and who are not British citizens, have been given safe passage, having got to the border. Does this mean that the Afghan civilian resettlement scheme is now up and running because we have all got good cases that qualify just as much as those worthy people do for immediate help and rescue?
I thank the honourable gentleman. And I will address that point shortly. In addition to the deployment of staff, we are providing £30 million to Afghans' neighbours to provide life-saving support for refugees. Meanwhile, and this goes to the point that he mentions, the Home Office is currently in the process of fully launching the resettlement programme, providing a safe and legal route to the UK for up to 20,000 Afghans in the region, which touches upon the point that he made. I do really have to make some progress. There are a lot of points that I wish to discover, and I'm sure they will be able to bring this up in the forthcoming debate. Madam Deputy Speaker, the FCDO team in London and internationally continue to work around the clock in supporting the processing with and responding to the correspondence that have been sent by members of this House. During the evacuation operation alone, the FCDO, as I said previously at the dispatch box, received over 200,000 emails. Approximately 30,000 of those emails were from members of Parliament. And this volume reflects the concern and passion of the House, and we completely understand that. However, it has been a Herculean task working through that volume of emails. Hundreds of civil servants, I'm going to make progress, hundreds of civil servants are being assigned to work through this caseload each day, working in multiple shifts through the day, working 7 days a week. The FCDO aim to complete the triage of cases either to the MOD or to the Home Office and notify honourable members by tomorrow. It has become increasingly clear as we work through these cases that both the volume and the complexity means that we will have to take longer than we had originally hoped. What we have learnt is that some individual pieces of correspondence contain very large numbers of highly complex cases, which means that it is not always obvious which government department is the most appropriate recipient for the email, and also makes predicting how long this work take very difficult. But I can tell the House that by tomorrow, the FCDO will have contacted more than half of the honourable members who have written to us, letting them know which department their cases have been sent to. And we will endeavour to complete this process for all but the small minority of MPs with the most complex cases by the timelines previously communicated to members. And I will give.
I thank the Minister for giving way, and also in particular for his update on his discussions with other countries, including Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, which I think are a very important part of this puzzle. But there are two specific points. Firstly, there's a new form on the Foreign Office website for British nationals in Afghanistan to register. But when I asked the Foreign Secretary about whether that form needed to still be completed again by British nationals who have already notified the Foreign Office that they are still there. He said he didn't know and to ask the Minister. So I'd be grateful if the Minister could update the House on whether British nationals, very important point, still in Afghanistan, have to fill out another form in order to be on the Foreign Office's register. And could I also just ask, in relation to those who are Afghan nationals who are at risk, people who work, for a particular example, someone who worked as a BBC journalist who is in hiding at the moment with her children, what advice should I be giving her right now? She's a relative of a constituent and in serious risk at this moment.
I completely understand the Honourable Lady's desire to get information to at-risk Afghans. It's not possible for me to give credible advice based just on the information that she has sent through. She makes the point about the website, and whilst it is not necessarily it is not the duty of members of the House to have to understand the machinery of government. I think it is worthwhile members understanding that when the Foreign Office has received emails, sometimes with the details of hundreds of individual cases, it is very difficult at times even to double check to see whether those details have already been passed to us. So the point we've made, even in the case of British nationals, we have received, as I say, cases which have been a mix of British nationals, potential Arab scheme Afghans, and other Afghans that are likely to come through in the Home Office scheme that has been announced. And working through them, triaging them and distributing them is a time-consuming, incredibly time-consuming and complex case, which we have to do with care. And I'll give way to
my right honourable friend. It's obviously right that we crack through this casework as soon as possible, particularly in relation to UK nationals and those who come under the scope of the Arab scheme. That's a UK responsibility. We're going to be faced with a refugee crisis, that there is no question. And we will therefore need a much bigger programme in order to take as many people as is reasonable with our partners. The experts in this matter is the United Nations, who have provided triage, of course, relatively recently and contemporaneously in the Syrian resettlement programme. So what discussion has he had with the UN about how to manage this situation, particularly in relation to those who have now fled Afghanistan?
I thank my honourable friend. I will come on to that very point very shortly. Those MPs who have particularly complex cases, as we work through this process, ultimately they will be contacted directly by a ministerial team. They will be phoned by a member of the ministerial team to update them on the progress of those cases and where, and if necessary, to establish further information to allow us to process these cases. Madam Deputy Speaker, a crisis of this magnitude demands a wider strategic response from the international community. It's the point that my honourable friend has just made. The UK is very much leading in that response. We are galvanising actions around 4 key priorities. First, preventing Afghanistan from ever again becoming a haven for global terrorism. Secondly, preventing humanitarian disaster and to support refugees. Thirdly, preserving wider regional stability. And fourth, to hold the Taliban to account for their conduct, including their record on human rights. And we will be at the UN General Assembly next week to take forward these priorities with our international partners. Working with the international community, we must set credible tests to hold the Taliban to the undertakings that they themselves have made. Turning to the motion before the House, I would note that there is already a very comprehensive range of scrutiny of the government on this very issue. The Foreign Affairs and the Defence Select Committees have both already launched inquiries on Afghanistan. Further scrutiny will no doubt come from the House of Lords International Relations and Defence Committee, and indeed possibly from other committees in either this House or the other place. It is not clear what additional value a joint committee of both houses would add. And the motion before us states that a joint committee would consider the government policy in Afghanistan from February 2020 to the end of August this year. In fact, the government's policy on Afghanistan during that period has been clear, and there have been many opportunities to question ministers and indeed the government on that approach. I'm going to conclude, because otherwise I'm stealing time from members who wish to contribute to the debate. The motion proposed that this new committee considers the intelligence assessment made about the situation in Afghanistan. The Intelligence and Security Committee already has a statutory responsibility for oversight in this area, and that is the proper vehicle for providing such scrutiny. Next, the motion stipulates that the Joint Committee would scrutinise the eligibility of the Arab scheme. But again, Madam Deputy Speaker, the eligibility criteria have been known for months by every member of this House. There is no need for a particular Joint Committee to debate them now or indeed in the future. Of course, the overriding challenge we faced has not been eligibility per se, but the difficulty of implementing a scheme in the rapidly changing and deteriorating security situation that we observed in Afghanistan. To conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, thanks to our brave servicemen and women, no terrorist attack has successfully been launched from Afghanistan against this country for the last 20 years, and I'm grateful for the Honourable Lady opposite to recognise that point. It is painful to watch what has gone on in Afghanistan, but we should remember that 10 million more children have been educated because of our intervention. 8 million landmines have been cleared because of our intervention. In the new reality we face in Afghanistan today, it will be challenging to preserve those gains. Of course it will, but we must do all we can with a concerted new international approach. And the party opposite supported the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, and as yet we do not see the opposition putting forward a credible alternative set of policies or strategic approach to this incredibly challenging issue. The relevant select committees, as I say, Madam Deputy Speaker, are already looking into the recent events of Afghanistan and providing scrutiny as they should. The motion before us would therefore create an unnecessary process and would inevitably duplicate the work of those committees and divert government resources from what should be our priority, which is addressing the needs of those people currently in Afghanistan that we need to help. Therefore, I urge honourable members on both sides of the House to